the Stations of the Cross are a metaphor for me. The Christ is crucified every day, every second. And you'll see up there on the crucifixion, every Jesus is different. Even one Jesus is a woman, one Jesus is black. And the point is that how do you deal with suffering? And this whole project started 20 years ago, and in earnest when I retired, to be able to concentrate on this, and then to learn how to deal with to become empathetic. You have to learn how to deal with your own suffering first before you can be empathetic to others, and that's been a big one. And so this whole effort has been that. And so on these panels, there are archetypes that go back to the Paleolithic times, the Lascaux caves, the Birdman, and so on, all the way up to the present. You'll see cars, you'll see rocket ships, you'll see guns, you'll see the American flag coming apart, and you'll see Cambodian people who were literally crucified by Pol Pot. And so the crucifixion is a huge metaphor, and one that I find very, very moving. And so that's why I took it.
Why does suffering hold you captive? Why did you need to do this project? Why did you need to wrestle with the idea of suffering for 20 years and eventually come to, I'm going to use the stations as a metaphor for engaging that?
Well, I mean, should I'll just get on the couch, because this...
Are there any therapists in there? Probably.
But anyway, my childhood I had an amazing childhood. I grew up in the typical Irish Catholic family with all the good things and a lot of the bad things. And I was badly dyslexic and had abandonment problems and all these other issues. And and dealing with that growing up was tough, and I was isolated and so on. And then the older we get, and I was so fortunate in my life to have mentors. I had my wife and all these people who brought me along. But over the years, I put so much dirt on top of all of this, and I knew that before I go, I got to get this right. And I'd been planning this for 10 years or more, and I was going to use the Stations of the Cross as a way to take the shovel out and uncover this stuff and deal with it face to face. And I'm not saying that I had any big conversion or anything. It's not. It's work, and it's awareness, and I love the quote by Mark Twain. He says, I've experienced many terrible things in my life, and some of them actually happened. and so I'm sort of in that category. And so, and then I'm Irish Catholic, is in my DNA is melancholy. For 1,000 years eating eating grass and potatoes, and that's in there. So I'm in love with melancholy, and I'm happiest when I'm sad. That's what, and dealing with all that. And it's not just my childhood. This goes back in the DNA, and that's what the collective unconsciousness is, and that's what all this stuff that I work in. All these paintings are literally battlegrounds to fight these battles and bring this awareness up to the surface, so that I can deal with it in an authentic way.
When did you have the first idea that, okay, I'm going to take suffering, I'm going to use...
when we went to...
When you went to that,
yeah.
And initially you said this was going to be a very small work.
Right, because I'm lazy. I've been thinking about this a long time, and I've been doing a lot of reading. There's lots of books all over the place, and philosophy and Gnosticism, religion, and a lot of science, a lot of chaos theory, a lot of you just wouldn't believe where I've gone. And I don't want everybody running out of the room, because, but that's what this is all culminating into this.
what I marvel at is that you hold all of this in a spirit. You're dealing with the darkest things of humanity, suffering, questions of evil, etc. And yet you hold, and melancholy, and yet you look at these images and getting to know you a bit, you hold them with this amazing sense of hope.
It's the medication. No,
where does that come from? Am I? Do you have hope? You have hope. You kind of
absolutely.
So
absolutely.
where does that come from?
Well,
a lot of people just start to think about the status of the worlds that are there. They sink down, but you don't just simply think about it, and you don't simply visit it. You reflect on it actively. You want to have more, out there dreams, and then you paint it. But you paint, so you're dealing with this darkest stuff and many layers. Yet you have this.
Well, I had
amazing spirit to you.
Well, I had an experience, and it just happened. And I'll just tell you what happened. And it's a very innocent. I was like 11 years old, feeling miserable, walking down the street on Trad Street, which is a normal thing. I don't know what I was doing, just feeling overwhelmed with all of my problems. A lot of them that I caused myself, but it doesn't matter. But all these problems. And then, all of a sudden, I was enveloped with something. And if this feeling came to me, it says, you're going to be okay. Not only are you going to be okay, something special's in your life. And it was an amazing moment that is, it's not, do you forget? I mean, that's something that happened. And Kant and Schopenhauer and people like that, you can talk about the noumena, you can talk about logic, but you can talk, but the noumena, but the intuitive. Yes, if you told me, if you said, do you believe in God? And I would say, intellectually, I do the Kant thing, I said, you can't prove God. But from the intuitive sense, that there's this feeling that I had and so on, I experienced personally, and that's all I can do. So all I can tell you is what I personally experienced, and I might be, and that's it, and that's what happened, and so that's where that hope comes from. And it's more than hope. I mean, I know that we're going to be okay.
You had this amazing description of panel 13. You were. If I have this right, it's this dream that you had the night before Easter.
Yes.
You're there. You climb up and you see your granddaughter, and let me get the quote right. You say you kind of pass. You're accepting death, and you say, now she's going to take my place as Sisyphus in the world, constantly rolling this up and down, and you're at peace with that.
Right.
Totally at peace with death. I mean, a lot of people are ask them to think about their immortality. They don't want to, but here you're reflecting on, you're painting it, and you tell us this, and relate it to this incredible story of life, death, and life.
Well, there are plenty of people who are looking forward to my death. So, the thing, but death is it's natural. That's just. And every day I pray that I go with dignity and grace, and that's all I want. And the rest will take care of itself. It doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter what people tell me, or whatever. It's a certain feeling, and I don't want to go any further than that. It's a personal experience, and I can't tell anybody else how they feel or whatever. But that's just the way it is.
Yeah. So as people look at these, as they contemplate them, as they think about their own life and relationship to them, the suffering they see in the world, advice? How do you look at these paintings? How do you make them? How would you just they might have meaning in people's lives?
Well, the same way that I approached it, I hope. And what I would hope is that you look at the paintings, and they're a lot different than, they're almost like comic book, and that Bob Dylan song, just, people around us think life is but a joke, and then this kind of yes, but don't take it seriously. But on the other hand, all right, what I'm hoping is that people would understand where I came from, and maybe for them to do it themselves, and look at your own suffering and why you're suffering first. And then once you understand that, really work on that through awareness, and then you can then be empathetic, and in the Buddha sense, embrace the suffering of the world. And Jesus Christ said the same thing, and so did many others. But that's the message.
Mm. As you think about this whole project in 20 years, what was your most memorable moment? Is there something that over the course of this long project changed your life, surprised you, made you think differently about the world, something that still resonates with you today?
Well, it always will, because it's a real link. Mm. And to my, let's face it, I'm going through, I'm in a different phase of life now, and that was the gate opening to this next part of the journey. Mm-hmm. And now the journey is turning much more inward, and I'm fortunate because painting is a language, and the language, and I have a language that I feel comfortable with trying to explain just what we were talking about. Mm-hmm. And so that was, I mean, it's the line, and I crossed the line. And the way of the cross was definitely that line. I mean, I didn't just pick this up. I've been thinking about it for a while.
Yeah, you can't do something like this.
And it took a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And it took a lot of
awareness of your heart. I mean, it was self-awareness. All these pieces. What's next? What's the next project? I'm
going to do a lot more. I'm sort of thinking back to that last one. But anyway, much more. I'm much more going into mathematical fractals and nanoblock type series and Lorenz stuff, and what I'm really interested in is that where you really learn about something is on the edge, is in the shadow. It's not what's in front of you. When you look at something, at the light, that's great, but where you're going to really learn is on the periphery. Just like we know about quantum mechanics, very much in the macro and the micro, and then the macro with all the different parallel universes and so on, which most physicists believe in, and that's what I'm going into now. And I feel sorry for all those other lives of mine that had to. I mean, can you imagine, all the bad things that poor guy's got to suffer through that I got him into? But anyway, but all that kind of stuff. And so that's where the journey is going.
You'll take your heart on that journey, I know.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.